Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Now today I want to talk about something that is important, which is switching from Gnome to KDE. Now there are a lot of reasons why you want to do this, mainly because Gnome is bloated. You know that. If you are wondering why it's bloated or how you can prove it, if you ask me something like that, let me open up the system monitor. As you can see, it takes about 8 GB. Now, this is something that you will not see with other desktop environments. They take about, I don't know, 700 to 800 megs, even KDE Plasma with heavy config. Unless if you're using bloated KDE, uh, unless if you're using something like that, it's not going to take too much of uh, RAM or even system memory resources. Now, the other thing to avoid GNOME is there are a lot of stripped out features that are inside of GNOME. In GNOME 3, there are some features that I like to use, like the file, edit, and stuff like that. Those are stripped out after some GNOME versions came out. The other thing is that sometimes when I open up the show applications, uh, some of these apps just are empty in the first screen, or if you have more than two of these scrollable bars, you'll see some of these applications are missing. That is an a really bad thing because you'd probably think that your system is broken, but that's not the case. That's how GNOME works. So yeah, there are a lot of stuff that just doesn't work with GNOME and are bad about it. So I'm going to show you how to switch from this bloated desktop environment to a more better environment or a desktop environment known as KDE. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the terminal. Now I'm going to also do the configuration, as you might heard about the title. Now, I'm not going to go through the configuration from the terminal. I'm not going to do all of the configuration in the terminal once we install KDE because all of them are available in the system settings. So the first thing we actually need to do is make sure that everything is up to date. For that, we do sudo apt update, and I'll give my root password, and it should go ahead and update everything for us. So this might take some time depending on your system configuration. If you have any upgrades, you can do it, but according to your internet connection, if you have a really slow one, just update them, don't upgrade. But if you have a faster one, just do sudo apt upgrade. Um, Sudo apt upgrade. I already upgraded my system, so that's how it's going to work. The first thing we need to do is we need to remove GDM. If you're wondering what GDM is, it's an GNOME Display Manager. It's used as default login manager for GNOME. You don't really actually, you don't need to remove it when you install something like STDM, LXDM. You are actually forced to select an login manager to choose if you want to use LXDM or STDM, or you want to use the default GDM3. So you don't need to actually disable GDM3. It's going to automatically disable it once you install. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the following command. We'll do sudo apt install STDM, and it's about 74 megabytes. That's actually not too bad, but if you have a slow internet connection, it's going to take some time. Now if you wait for here, once it's done installing all of the packages, here as you can see, it's asking us about configuring STDM. A display manager is a program that provides graphical login capabilities for X Windows system. Now we'll select STDM. If you want to stick with GDM, you don't even need to install STDM. But since KDE integrates well with STDM, we are going to actually select the STDM, which is KDE's recommended login manager. So I'll select STDM. Now it's going to unpack every single thing that's required to make STDM work. And once it's done, all you need to do is just reboot the system. I'm going to do that and come back once it is done. Alright, so once you did a complete reboot, once installing STDM, after you install STDM, do a reboot, and once it's done, this is how it's going to look. Now we have some options right here, session. Now these are even available in GDM, but you will not see them because the button is like at the bottom. But taking a look at what we have Ubuntu on Xorg. This is the recommended option to choose instead of Wayland because Wayland has a lot of issues with recording and some apps don't really work with them. Select Ubuntu on Xorg, or you can go with any one of these options. The only reason I use Ubuntu on Xorg is just because Wayland has issues, but you can choose really whatever you want. And once you see all of them working, then you can enter your password and log in into your system. Now it's not going to remove GDM. I think you can still enable it once you're done using SGM. Like you want GDM back, then you can still enable it. But as you can see, we are fine. We are just inside of the system. The next thing we're going to do is install the actual KDE Plasma. So I'm going to open up the terminal, and if I just do a full screen, as you can see, we're going to install KDE Plasma, and we're going to also install some apps that don't come with KDE. So what we're going to do, apt install, and we're going to install Plasma Desktop, and we're going to install Dolphin. Kate, Dolphin is actually an file manager. Kate is a text editor. If you want a graphical text editor instead of Vim or Nano or even Neo Vim, something like that, you can go with Kate. And the let me cancel that. The other thing you need to install is known as console, because I face this issue sometimes. Console doesn't get detected and you're not going to be able to launch a terminal at all. So install console, and I think that's all there is. Let's go and hit enter. Let me give my root password, and yeah, it's about 1.74 gig, which is actually a lot. We'll hit enter, just hit Y, and it's going to take a lot of time, so I'll just come back once it is done, and I will just do a reboot, and I will see once uh, the login manager comes again. Alright, so I logged into KDE Plasma. The next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be configuring it, because as you know, the STDM looked pretty bland, it didn't work pretty well. So let's go ahead and configure it to make it look pretty good. So the first thing I'm going to actually do is open up the start menu. So this is how it's going to look. Let me open up the system settings, and once it's open, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the light theme to dark theme. It's pretty simple to change theme. As you can see, this is how it's going to look. Now we know that the logo doesn't look good because it's pretty confusing. So let's go ahead and edit it. The way you can edit the panel, we close that. To edit this panel, you right click on it, hit edit panel, and what you need to do is hover over this application launcher, hit configure, and let's change this icon to Ubuntu. Now Ubuntu is not here. Let me search for Debian. I think we'll go with this Ubuntu logo, so that looks pretty cool as well, and let's hit OK. So as you can see, the icon looks pretty good as well. If I open that up, as you can see, this is how it's going to look. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to be actually installing a good wallpaper. I think we don't need to install any wallpaper. If you right click, hit configure desktop and wallpaper, it's going to actually open up desktop photo settings. Let's change this to an Debian um, wallpaper. Yeah, that looks pretty good as well. You can always change it to look however you want, but this is what we're going to be choosing for now. And once we close them, this is how it's going to look. Let's also change the icon theme. Now for this, I'm going to open up the system settings. I'm going to keep it open. If you go into appearance, once we go into here, we should see all of these things. Currently we have the breeze dark, that's the actual theme that we're using. If we go into icons, here we should see all of these icons. Now I'm going to install something called candy icons. If I hit on get new icons, search for sweet, And once you search for that, it's not sweet, it's candy icons. As you can see, this is the icon list that I'm going to be using. This is the icon package, and it's not going to take too much of time to install. It's just clicking on that, and there we go. Let's hit close. Just search for it, and once you're done with that, select the candy icons. You should see that in list. Hit apply, and as you can see, the icon looks much more better, and you can change to breeze dark anytime you want. The other thing is a cursor. Now I generally go with the breeze light, so that's the cursor that I'm going to go with. You have your default ubuntu uh, I think cursors here. You can go and select it if you want. Now here, as you can see, we have window decorations. I'm going to search for Mac OS. Now the window decorations are this one. So as you can see, these are the window decorations. We're going to change that to a Mac OS looking kind of uh, theme. So I'm going to go with, I think we'll go back, and I will go with and most downloaded one, and I think we'll go with this MC Mojave. Let me see how it looks. Yeah, that looks fine. Let's install it, and I will go with, I think we'll go with the default one. Just go with the default one, and once it's done, you can close that. Let me close it, and as you can see, we have the MC Mojave light and as well as the dark theme. Let's go with the dark theme, and as you can see, this is how it's going to look like. So we have all of these things. So the maximize, minimize, close, everything is right here. Now if you want something like a compositor, let's go ahead and install it as well. Now as I mentioned, I'm going to be using console because that's what is recommended. So I'm going to open up the application launcher, console. Now the graphics, they look a little laggy because this is a virtual machine, but if you're doing this on an actual machine, then it's going to be really smooth. So now let's install something like a nitrogen, but it's not nitrogen, it's Compton. Now for Debian based systems, it's known as Compton. I don't think you don't even need an compositor, but let's install it. So we'll do sudo apt install. Now again, for Debian systems like Ubuntu, Pop OS and actual Debian, you need to use Compton. For Arch based systems, you can use PyCom. So I'm going to install Compton just to make sure that everything is installed. Let's install it, and it's going to unpack Compton. And once it's done, we should be able to enable compositing. By default, it's already on. If you search for compositing, there you go, compositor. As you can see, we have enabled compositor at startup. Here we're going to go with smooth OpenGL 3.1. Now we'll go with force smoothest animations. Now if you're recording, make sure that it's set to automatic, and yeah, that's all there is. So make sure you change the scale method to smooth, open the rendering backend to OpenGL 3.1, latency to force smooth animations, and hit apply. And I think that's all there is we need to do. You can also change your shortcuts, but that's for another video. But if you go into appearance, let it actually, so I think we'll just restart uh, the app, system settings, open that. Let's go into appearance. There we go. I'll just restart the app so that it can actually work. And if you go into application style, as you can see, there are like a lot of application styles. I'm going to just stick with the breeze, that looks better. I think we'll go with fusion, that looks pretty nice as well. If you go into plasma style, we have all of these themes. This is just the app theme or the icon theme. As you can see, the taskbar, all of those themes, you can go and change it if you want. And for the colors, as you can see, the default one is just okay. Window decorations, we change that to MC Mojave dark. Now for the font, I generally go with the default one. They just look better as well. Now icons, we change that to candy icons and cursors. Now sometimes they may not appear to be the theme that you choose in, because it takes a restart or a reboot to actually apply the theme. Font management, and one other thing that I want to show you is splash screen. I'm going to get a new one because why not? That doesn't look too good, so we'll go with the highest rated. And one splash screen that I know is known as Sweet. And once loads up, let me go with recent one. Yeah, this one kind of looks good. So this is a splash screen that actually appears instead of the KDE logo and some other things that loading below. Just install it, close, and now if I hit on Sweet Arch, apply it. You can also play it, so we'll hit on play, and yeah, that's how it's going to look. You can hit escape to just escape out of that uh, play. Now we'll change our login manager. If you hit login manager, as you can see, we have this two. Let me get some new one. This one is actually let's go with the highest rated, and this is what I use, sugar candy for STDM. This looks really good. If you having any I don't know, something like a very bland STDM theme, then just install this as sugar candy for STDM by Marian. Give your root password, and once it's done, you should be just go into login screen STDM, select sugar candy, hit apply, give your root password. Now if you go into desktop effects, here's where I just uh, check some actual options. So here, mouse click animation, and you can enable blur effects, and you can also you check this fall apart. It's like tearing into pieces. And the other thing that I'm going to use is slide. So when you're switching between virtual desktops, you can actually use fade, desktop cube animation, or even the actual slide itself. You can choose one of them if you want. And window close animations, just hit apply. You can enable whatever you want, it's just endless. And we'll see what are inside of the auto start. Auto start, you can actually see there are nothing. If you want to enable some services or some scripts, you can. We go into background services. As you can see, we have all of these things as well. Now this is how we can configure KDE. Yes, this may look pretty bland, but still you can configure it however you want. Now if you want something that looks just better than this, I would recommend you to install a global theme. It's known as Sweet. I will search for that. It's known as Sweet KDE. So this is the one. Just install it. It's going to take some time because it is a pretty long one to install, but just make sure that you have a good internet connection. It's just going to install in some time. But to see it in action, let's go ahead and log out. So I will just log out, and I will log out of my session, and let's just do a quick reboot to see how it works. So I'm going to do a quick reboot. And as you can see, we have our login manager. Now yes, that looks pretty bad because this is actually a virtual machine, so things looks uh, they look pretty bad. But as you can see, we are inside of Plasma X11. You can switch between Ubuntu, the Gnome version if you want. I will enter into here, and you should see the actual splash screen. As you can see, that is the one we chosen. Yeah, that looks pretty laggy again. It's a virtual machine. If you're doing this on an actual machine, your graphic card should take care of that. So yeah, that's all there is I want to talk about. You can configure it however you want. You can actually add widgets if you want. Everything is possible in KDE Plasma. I will link to all of the resources and some documentations that you probably could use if you want to make it look good. If you want to use like the dock instead of this traditional taskbar, then I will also link that in the description so you can check that out. Thanks for watching. If you like my video, make sure you like it, subscribe the channel, and I will see you in the next video.